we need to do better than that. We need to see our kids. We need to, put down our phones and look them in the eye. We need to wipe that. We need to see that there's peanut butter on their face and wipe it off so that they know that we care about them.
Hey everyone, welcome to You May Contributorverse. I'm Josh Munkin, joined by my co-host Brenna Jennerette and podcast wizard John Seymour for a conversation with someone who I wanted to talk to ever since I got into kidlit and picture book writing, Bitsy Kemper. Bitsy was always very visible to me, even in my early days of trying this picture book stuff out, primarily because she is so giving back to the community. Check out her website, bitsykemper.com, B-I-T-S-Y is how you spell her first name, bitsykemper.com, for especially her list of publishers, which we discuss for several minutes at the top of the conversation, and which I think has been a lot more visible in the Twitter days than it might be today. So please check that out if you have not yet seen it. And also the rest of our conversation with Bitsy, which is just really great. It's very endearing and adorable, and I'm excited for you to listen to it. But first, a word from our sponsor, per normal. So we are sponsored by Tealmore Press, who have released a book called Fungi Are More Than Mushrooms by Alicia Gabriel and Vivian Sarkani. This is a lushly illustrated, very earthy toned, and adorable and endearing book that is sure to teach you more about mushrooms. Check out all of their recent releases as well as upcoming stuff at tealmorepress.com, Tielmour press.com. And also, I do want to do one other shout out, which is to John and what he's doing for his show, his new kids show called The Hook Book Barrel. I've come across a bunch of his videos lately on TikTok. He's available elsewhere, but if you've got TikTok, go and check him out. JHB Book, JAYHB Book on TikTok, where he's putting a lot of this very reading rainbow flavored content, and if you want to see his handsome mug, so that go and check out John there on TikTok and elsewhere, and everything else that Tealmore has to offer at tealmorepress.com. And now, without further ado, here is our conversation with Bitsy Kemper.
Josh and I have never met in person, but we do this podcast so much that I know, like where he is in his house. Yeah.
Okay, what color shorts is he wearing?
No idea.
That is too personal. I actually don't have legs, Bitsy.
He's just he's just a floating head as far as I'm concerned.
It's just microphone podcast machinery.
Now you guys froze.
Yeah, right. He's actually AI built.
Yeah, you guys froze on me right then, so I'm like, wow, that was in really poor taste. He doesn't have legs. Oh my gosh!
All this time I've been recording with a robot. Our whole friendship is a sham.
It's a sham.
Well, Bitsy, we are happy to have you on the show today. I'm so glad that it worked out because we've tried a couple of times to get you on, and it finally worked out today, so I'm excited.
I've been trying to get on the show for a while.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of like a back and forth, behind the scenes scheduling stuff, but yeah, we're so happy to have you. And I mean, my first thought is I would love to hear all about how you gather your list of editors who are open to unagented writers, because that is like such a resource for the kidlit community, Bitsy. Like, I know tons of people who are just like, oh, the new list is out, like, have you seen, and they'll post it, and I personally followed that link for a while and just, went through all the publishers I could submit to. Anyways, I would love to hear all about how that started and how you do your research.
And why it's not called Bitsy's Pieces.
Amazing.
Well, I call my newsletter Bitsy's Bits, but yeah, I could always change that publisher's list to that. All right. Well, so I'm kind of fanatical when it comes to doing research for my own submissions. And I always want to make sure that that first off, that the publisher is still accepting, that the editor or agent that I'm submitting to is still there. And I always want to find some kind of connection, like they're a Mets fan like I am. I know you can feel bad for me now. Or there's something that they recently acquired, or, they like to cook, so that I can say, unfortunately, I don't like to cook, but we can still be friends. It's just one tiny little thing, unfortunately, I even burn the salad, it's just something that forms a bit of first off, it connects a piece of human connection. And second, it shows that I'm paying attention. So I do a crazy amount of research every single time I submit. I mean, you guys know, right? It might be months in between, even if it's the same piece, even if it's the same manuscript, you might not submit it out for a couple months. And your manuscript can change in between, and the industry sure can change in a couple months. So you have to do that research all over again. So I have literally a spreadsheet, and I'm like, this editor here that I've been hoping to send to, is she even still there? Is she accepting? All those things. I have to do the research all over again. And I was thinking, this is so much, enter swear word here, work, that it's a shame to just leave it here for just me. I mean, I feel selfish having all of this. So I figured I want to share this, but like most of my critique partners are like so above a list like that. Like that's the last thing they need, because they have agents and are, they just don't need it. So I figured I'll just post it, share it with anybody else who does need it. And that's how I started doing it. Every time I update it for me, I update it for everybody else. And then little by little, I started thinking, there's got to be more than the people I tend to always submit to. And I just started doing the research on who else is out there. I originally just had U.S. publishers. That's who I was focusing on. Then I'm like, why not? Why not look in the UK? Why not look in Australia? Why not look in Canada? Because there's, the internet is worldwide. Why not include a bunch of them? And every now and then someone will send me a message saying, have you seen such and such? So there's at least four houses on there that I hadn't heard of until somebody DM'd me about them.
To be clear, these are far beyond what you would research for yourself and for your own purposes at this point.
Yes. Yeah. There's over 100 on the list. There's probably 140 houses. Now, we're talking publishing houses, not agents. Publishing houses that you can submit direct to without an agent. Because I don't have an agent. I have like 20, going on 25 books, and I've never had an agent. So my theory is, if I'm going to spend an hour researching, I'd rather cut out the middleman and go right to the source, because I'm still going to have to spend another hour, right? Do you guys have agents?
I do, but also...
We talked about it? We haven't...
I guess we haven't talked about... Yeah, like I just signed with my second agent, my new agent, Sharon Belcastro at Belcastro Agency. So and she's... Thank you. And she's amazing. Hi, Sharon, if you're listening. She's incredible. She's super fast. She's enthusiastic. She uses all the exclamation points just like I do. She definitely is like matching my energy and enthusiasm, which I love.
Kemper enters mental note. Okay.
She's incredible. She really, really is. Anybody listening, I am a huge fan. We've only worked together a couple of weeks, and I couldn't be happier. Anyways, I wanted to circle back real quick and just say, Bitsy, as you were talking, I mean, all of this research is like incredible, and you're so thorough and diligent, and you're keeping up with it. It is my comment in my head was, you're agenting yourself. Like, you really. So my follow up question was going to be, do you do this research to submit to agents, or maybe you're not even submitting to agents anymore?
So, I think the challenge is to get published, right? And an agent can certainly help you, and an agent is 100% going to get you access to the big people. They're going to get you more money. They're going to get you published a heck of a lot faster. And do I want an agent? Absolutely. I would love to have one. But until I do, I'm not going to stop submitting. I'm going to keep going. And I do have like I told you, I have this big spreadsheet. When and if I do submit to an agent on a specific title, I tell them this has been submitted to XYZ. There's a couple manuscripts I've had for many years that have been submitted to like 13 places. So I don't mention all of those. I just mention the fact that this new revision I'm excited about. I don't mention the fact that, it's been around for a while.
You don't need full disclosure.
So, yeah,
right?
So the list is, as you know, okay, so Josh, did you mention, do you have an agent?
No, I'm single and ready to mingle.
Amazing. Can you please start out all of your query letters like that going forward? Please swipe right.
On this manuscript?
Yes.
Tinder, but for picture books?
Yes.
That's fabulous.
Dude, amazing. That's the idea. That's the thing. Okay. I'll tell Gene, he'll get to coding on it. We can do an app for picture book matches, swipe right. Oh, I love all of this.
Please, swipe right for me. That's fabulous. Well,
yes.
Back to get an agent. You guys know how much work that is, all right? It takes a lot of work.
It's a full-time job. Yeah.
And there's a couple of people that have said, "Can you do a list like this for agents?" And I'm like, "Oh, you are welcome to start a list." But it just seems that the agent world that moves around a lot more or more quickly, I feel like, than the publishing world, because a publishing house doesn't open and close very quickly. Their contacts might, but their rules and their guidelines, their submission requirements don't tend to change all that much. Having a list of agents that are open and agency houses, that's just too much for me to tackle. If anyone is listening and wants to take that on, I will be your cheerleader. I will help you promote it, but I can't take that on. Yeah. So right now the list is about, there's probably like 120, 130 houses. About 15 of them are what I call asterisked, meaning they might only accept in the summer, or there's 1 month that they accept, or they're closed now, but they expect to be open. Those kinds of things. And there's probably 85 that are full on open for submission, either to authors and illustrators, or middle grade. It's primarily picture book, but there's also illustrators, middle grade, young adult, graphic novel, board books. It's all listed out in that list.
Yeah. To what extent do you feel like all of this research is benefiting you professionally as well? I know you've already professed that this is not in your own self-interest, except in the sense that this is already research that you were going to do for your own books. But right. Does the expanded list confer to you any sort of like enhanced profile or visibility in the industry? How do you think about that? It
certainly gets me a lot more web hits. I'll give you that.
Yeah, totally.
I see a very large spike every time I come out with an addended list. So that's a plus. And I was very excited when Elizabeth Law from Holiday House, she was giving a talk, and she was mentioning, and she goes, "Oh yeah, Bitsy Kemper, she has a long list of houses
That's amazing,
because they're an open house and they're in the list." So that was exciting, because I'm like, okay, it's getting known. And
the open house, that's another sort of great rebrand if you're looking for more names. Bitsy's Pieces and Open House.
Or that could be the name of this podcast episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, these are great.
Okay.
Workshopping as we go.
Nice. I like it. Open house. Yeah.
So Bitsy, so you said earlier in the conversation, you have 25 published books. Is that correct?
One more time.
Oh, sorry. You have 25 published books. Is that right?
They will be by next year or 2026. It should be 25, 26.
That's amazing. So I have several questions to ask you based on that answer. So first of all, like, let's talk about your journey into the kidlit world and writing and how that happened. You know, like how you got published initially, and then how that journey has gone. Because 25 titles, that's a lot. That's amazing.
Right. So a lot of them at the beginning were write for hire.
Okay,
and
yeah.
Some of them are ghostwritten for celebrities. I can't tell you who, so don't.
Oh shoot! I want to know. That's exciting.
Yeah, no, it's not Disney. I would love to get a Disney contract, but I will tell you this much: with Disney, they pay terribly.
Really?
The pay is terrible.
For their IP, right for hire.
If they do a work for hire and the Disney name is on it, because you get the benefit of having a Disney book, I think is their theory.
Interesting. Okay.
That's what I know. I haven't written for Disney. I would love to have a Disney title. So if Disney is listening to this, I apologize for mudslinging. I would welcome the opportunity. I would be happy to be paid Dumbo peanuts for the opportunity. And then, so I have a new book for grown-ups. I don't like to say an adult book because that sounds sassy. But the book that I just launched now is for moms to do with their kids. It's kind of a kid's book because it's for kids to do with their moms. But at the same time, it is writing it for a different demographic. Because this is kind of off topic, but, you know, when we write children's books, we write it for the child, but we also write it for the adult, right? Because it's the adult that's buying it, and it's the adult that has to read it over and over and over.
Yeah.
And if they don't like the book, they're not going to keep reading it. They're not going to buy it. I mean, I would say an exception to that is the book with no pictures. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Speaking of
Jane
celebrity
Novak.
books.
Yep.
Right, and it is a bear to read, right? It's exhausting. But that is an exception because it brings so much joy. You don't mind going through that over and over because it's just so fun. So you have to keep in mind when you're writing that any children's book, that the mom, probably the mom, any caregiver, has to want to read that book over and over. That's your goal, to have that child read it over and over and over. Have it be read to them, and then eventually have them want to read it on their own. So this book is a twist. The one that I wrote is called Mommy and Me, Micro Moments. And it's about the child having interactions with their mom 5 minutes a day, doing activities or telling jokes or fill in the blanks. Every day is a different thing that I created. It's a prayer book, but it doesn't have to, you don't have to do the prayers if that's not your jam. And it's all about taking advantage of small opportunities that a kid wouldn't recognize. But as a mom of older kids, I see how quickly it goes from, hey, Mom, look at this leaf, to, Mom, leave me alone. Right? And a kid doesn't see that. And when you're in the middle of it, you just want to get to the next stage. You don't know that this Mom, look at this leaf, is going to go away. So it helps you document all those little tiny, seemingly nothing moments that are really big moments. So that's what I wrote.
Yeah.
How big are your kids now?
They are college and graduate school.
Okay. So not unless they're botanists, probably not saying, look at this leaf anymore.
Yes, right. No, and the reason I say that use the leaf is that my neighbors, I throw them under the bus for this, but they don't know which neighbor I'm speaking of. They have a bunch of little kids between them, and we were out talking, and one of the kids came up and said, Mommy, look at this leaf. And they were like ignoring them. And they're like, Mom. And like, be quiet, the grown-ups are talking. And I'm like, my kids are upstairs with their door shut. I don't even think I've seen them since yesterday. Like, what I wouldn't give for my kid to show me a leaf. But I can't say that to them without looking like a jerk, without feeling superior or looking like I'm teaching them how to parent, right? There's no way for me to present that to them. Yeah. And I figured, how can I get a parent to capture that moment that they don't realize how important it is until it's over. So that's why I wrote that book. So that was totally
something in. Yeah, no. I think it's appropriate, and part of this whole grown-up child interaction. I mean, like you say, it is still, it is still in that sort of gray space between generations. There, how I'm curious to explore how that book came to be. I mean, I know from your own personal experience, but who published it, and how did you go about the process of writing it, assembling it, researching it, and I guess proposing it to begin with?
So this Mommy and Me book, I started thinking about how do I get this point across without, looking like a jerk. And about there's a specific thing in the Christian world called devotions. It has a specific format. It's well known. It's just, if you buy a devotional, you know what it is. So I started thinking, that format would work really well. But, devotions aren't for everyone. And if I were to tell my kid, come on, sit down next to me, we're going to do a devotional.
I'll be in my room. Yeah, right.
They're not going to be really, oh, yay, we're going to pray with mom. So I took the idea of that. So it does have some prayer. It has that similar format with a prayer kind of at the beginning and at the very end. But the middle of it is where the interaction between the mom and the child comes to play. That's where I force the mom and the child to be present. I force the moment. I force the mom and the child to look each other in the eye. There was one time when my kid came home in preschool, and he had peanut butter right here on his face. And would that bother either one of you if you had a kid come home with peanut butter on your face, their face?
No.
We're not supposed to send kids with peanut butter these days.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Let's assume it was almond butter.
Almond butter.
Well, the reason it made me very mad is because that means no one looked at my son since lunch. No one looked him in the eye or looked at his face and saw that he had peanut butter on his face. Right? No one saw him. And it broke my heart because I thought, he's at school, he's with all the other kids. I mean, that was like a solid 3 hours that no one saw my kid. Or if they did, they didn't care enough to wipe it. So I feel like we need to do better than that. We need to see our kids. We need to, put down our phones and look them in the eye. We need to wipe that. We need to see that there's peanut butter on their face and wipe it off so that they know that we care about them.
Just want to interject real quick. I love that sentiment, and not to undermine at all, but my kid would prefer to keep the peanut butter there as like a battle wound or like a mark of some kind. Like he would use it as like a prop or like look at me, like I have a peanut butter mustache or whatever it was. So just to interject, my kid. Yeah, I feel like he would go the other way with that, but I do understand what you're saying. Yeah. I love the sentiment that you're trying to put into this book, to be present and to see
in that
each
case,
other.
right?
Yeah.
Your child is asking to be seen, right? He's requiring.
Yep.
He's forcing you to look him in the eye, and that's great. I'm sure it gets old at some point, but he is saying you need to look me in the eye. I deserve your attention. And that's, if you look at it from that perspective.
Look at me in the peanut butter mustache.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is a very different perspective. He's saying, I deserve your attention. And that's a very different perspective if you look at it like that instead of another disruption.
I think, I imagine you think about it this way, but, I've got a little bit of experience with these sorts of daily interactive intentionality guided journals, not just like I had when I was a kid, which is just like a blank notebook that you put your thoughts in, but these guided purposeful journals. Is that the sense in which you kind of like a mental health intentionality, sort of anxiety mitigating. Is that the sort of segment that you stepped into when you wrote this? Maybe that's the wrong way to frame it up, but that's kind of the filter that I'm putting on the book. Right. Is this sort of guided interaction?
I originally called it a journal, but I figured it doesn't really fit the journal mold because you're not documenting your feelings. You're not documenting necessarily what went on today, but what you're documenting are snippets of things. So maybe one day it's fill in the blank. Today we had blank for breakfast. Today we did blank in the afternoon. And, it just captures one day in the life of your child. One of them might be ask your child what they did at recess and write down word for word what they said. Because that's really fun to hear, their words. All the more if you can, really phonetically spell out, I wanted my boette. My boette didn't match my shoes, and Mommy wouldn't listen to me because I needed my boette to match my shoes. You know how charming that voice is. Yeah, so there's different things like that. So it's not so much a journal in that way, but it's a journal in the way that it does capture a moment in time.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, for me, that's incessant picture taking, which I have to remind myself to be intentional about.
Yeah, and there's only one entry in the entire book. So it's 5 weeks. Yeah, 5 weeks. So there's only one thing in the 35 days that you're allowed to use your phone, and that's when you ask the kid to pick a number between 1 and 12, and then between 1 and 31. 1 and 28 probably, and then he or she picks a month, unknowingly picks a month and a day, and then you go through your phone and you randomly pick a year in their life, and you click on that day, and you just pick a picture and talk about what was going on that day. What were the sights and the smells, and do you remember? Oh yeah, do you remember Uncle Jed? Do you remember when he came to town? And if they don't, oh yeah, Uncle Jed loved you so much. You don't remember that time? Oh yeah, we had a good time with Uncle Jed. Things like that. That's the only time you use your phone in the whole devotional.
Gosh darn it, if that isn't the sweetest thing, though. Just that intentionality behind it. Hey everybody, time for a mid-episode break, just for a moment of your attention and time. We're going to do 3 more good reviews, 2 of which, like normal, are things that I have not read yet, apparently, but like normal as well, doing some fresh reads right off the dome without having read these before, so let's see how I do. Brenna's review for this week is for The Cafe at the Edge of the Woods by Mikey, please. Renee has saved up and built a cafe to serve gourmet food. The only problem is the trolls and ogres that frequent her restaurant only want gross entrees. Luckily, her waiter Glumfoot knows just how to present the dishes so that Renee and the monsters are both happy. A unique must-have for any library. Why have I not read this? Because it sounds delightfully bizarre. John's review for this week is Cranky Franky, the Selfish Shellfish, another tongue twister, by Michelle Chu and Joseph Penner, illustrated by Sonya Abbey. In a world where overabundance coexists alongside extreme scarcity and poverty, it feels like there should be great opportunity to teach future generations about the concerns this presents. Enter Cranky Franky, a heartwarming picture book that highlights the values of kindness, sharing, and friendship through lively illustrations and a complimentary dash of humor. Young readers follow Franky, a hermit crab who learns that cooperation and not greed brings joy. A new age rainbow fish in the making. John wrote this one quickly without his usual rating, so I will give it John's 5 scales out of 5, or 5 shells, maybe 5 shells. My review I've read before because I wrote it. My review for the week is for one that we picked up from the library yesterday. It's a fresh one released this year called Riding Through Rice Fields, A Trip to the Philippines by Michelle Sterling and Bianca, Austria. It's a touching ode to connecting to who your parents really are through the lens not of the day-to-day, which is painted as sort of drab and humdrum and quickly moved beyond in the book, but of the past and of removing ourselves from routine, which always really serves to extract our essential essence, as in this book, as a nice contrast. This story blends really nicely the cultural education that children of immigrants get by visiting their family homes with the yearning we feel to know our parents as full people and not just in their role as parent, which is so much more effective through shared experience like sleeping in a sugarcane field or dealing with a flat bike tire in a foreign country than through just asking questions. Really, really delightful book here. Those are 3 books that we think that you should check out and read, and I certainly have 2 more to add to my list. If you would like to continue to support the podcast in whatever way is most feasible and desirable for you, I suggest that you hit up verse.show or our Linktree at linktree.com/verseshow. Get a shout out, get a shirt, get a click, get a history in your browser. We appreciate all of the attention and ear time. Also, if you care for the podcast, if you've never done this, go on your favorite podcatcher and give us a review for the podcast as well. I don't have a link for that because I don't know how you listen to this, but go on and just give us a couple of words. Just bump our rankings. All right, enough silliness on my end. Let's get back to the rest of our conversation with Bitsy Kemper. Okay, so let's take that. Let's take that as an example. I mean that phone example takes some thought on your end. You've got 35 different of these little sort of intentional micro projects where you're encouraging people to interact. Where did the writing of this come in? Did you and let's call out who published it, and then I guess how you interacted with them. How fully formed was it when you sold the project?
It's with a small Christian publisher, and I originally had 30 because I was going after busy moms, and they said, let's make it a little thicker and go after 90. So I wrote 90 under protest, saying busy moms are intimidated by 90. Busy mommies do not want to commit to 90 days.
You're 100% right. As soon as you said 90, I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. Mommies clench at 90s, right?
Yep.
So, I'll commit to a month, but I'm not going to commit to all summer. No. Yeah. So then I got it back. We got it back down to 5 weeks. Because it was a 5-week fun devotion. I did some sort of alliteration there.
Yeah.
And so all the ideas just came from my head, like trying to think of some things that I did with my kids that I enjoyed and some things that I wish I did with my kids and some things I thought would be really fun for moms to do with their kids now instead of being on their phone at the park.
Well, that's super sweet.
Just came up with it on my own.
And
except I will admit, I will put an asterisk there saying jokes are not copyrighted. So some of the jokes and riddles that I have in there, some of them I didn't make up all the jokes. Okay, so I'm being real here. Not all of the jokes are mine.
But
many of them are.
There are no more new ideas, right?
Full disclosure, right?
So what was the submission process like for that one? Like, how did you have a lot of rejections before you found a home for it?
On that, okay, so this is kind of funny too. I have critique partners, and they're amazing. Between Erin, Patty, and Lori, they probably have 250 books between them, right? They know what they're doing, okay? They have a lot of books published. And for whatever reason, I didn't show this to them because it was personal to me. It was just, something close to my heart. Something, I don't know, I didn't want it critiqued because it was mine. I didn't want to show it to them because I didn't want them to hurt my feelings if they didn't like it. So I participated in a thing. Serious Writer did this thing. Serious Writer is a group. You pay for membership now, but it was a writers group, and they did a thing where in the month of December, for the 15 days of Christmas, where they brought in, a website person and an editor and an agent and a different editor, and they offered a free service each day in December, and one of them was this publisher. They critiqued your pitch. So, as I mentioned, how anal I am with my research, I researched the publisher, and I figured which of my manuscripts would they most likely be interested in. And so they were just critiquing pitches, but I submitted the pitch that I thought would be most compelling to them, and they said, hey, send this to me in January when things slow down. And by February, I had a contract. So that was a very, very smooth process.
Yeah, wow, that's right. Fast.
They say lucky is when opportunity meets preparation, right? So that was a very, very lucky opportunity.
Yeah.
Because I was prepared. Yeah.
I resonate so much with what you said about not wanting your critique partners to read this one, though. Like there are some manuscripts that are just too personal and too precious, and for me, it's the dumbest jokes that I could ever write. I don't those don't bear bear scrutiny because they're my dumb jokes.
Right.
But I feel like to some degree, probably most of us feel that way about at least some aspect of our work, and there has to be a distancing ourselves from that preciousness to put our work out for critique.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because I think if you're a small business owner and you make, in college, right, we always refer to it as a widget. If you make a widget and you sell a widget, it's a widget, you sell it. You do your best to market it. Somebody else made it. Someone else manufactures it. You're just selling it. Even if you're the business owner and it was your idea, it's a widget. But with writing, it's so personal. It's us. We're saying this is us. We're presenting on a piece of paper. We're presenting ourselves, and it's so hard to not take any critique personal because we feel like they're critiquing us, right? Any critique hurts, no matter how right they are. It hurts because it's so personal.
So Bitsy, I wanted to ask about your earlier publications and your earlier career in the Kidlit writing world. How did you get started in Kidlit, and what was your first publication journey sort of like?
Okay, yeah. My first books were Write for Hire with Picture Window Books, which is a subset of Capstone. And that was a result of going to an SCBWI conference where they had a call for authors. And I sent it in, and I embarrassed myself after a conference, after one of the sessions, by talking to someone from Picture Window Books saying, "Ooh, I just submitted to your call for authors." And she goes, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, did I just do you not have a call for authors? Am I mixing you up with somebody else? This was my first writers conference." And she goes, "Oh, we might have. They never tell me anything." And then I'm like, okay, and then I'm like red faced, trying to back out of the room. But she hands me her card, and she says, "Yeah, well, I guess if we do, I'll look for it or something." She was very gracious. What I did is I resent it. Like maybe I hadn't sent it yet. I had prepared it, but I told her I had prepared something for it. So when I sent it to the address on the call for authors, and I CC'd her. This is another lucky opportunity. The email that they put on the call for authors was wrong. So it only sent to her.
Yours was the only one that got in.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So I'm sure there were other places, that was just one of the places that they had a call for authors. But because I had met her and I was memorable because I felt like I made a fool of myself in front of her. And so she called me. This is funny too. She called me about 2 weeks later and she says, "We have an opportunity. We want somebody with, whimsical fun, someone that can take something a little kind of boring and make it fun. Would you like to write for?" Yes, I would. Like, she didn't even finish what she was saying. And I was like, yes, I do. I'll do it. So I wrote 4 virtual field trip books for them. It was fun.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, and those are the I don't have it in front of me. The out and about, like the theater.
Yep.
Yeah, the theater, dentist office. Yeah, those are super cute.
Good memory, yeah.
Yeah.
Baseball stadium. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fun. And then I wrote. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, did that lead to other opportunities since those were work for hire?
Well, I think that gave me the confidence to submit more of my work to people that do work for hire. People called packagers. Have you guys heard of packagers? Not everyone is familiar with the word.
I don't think so.
No. Okay. So you can write for hire for someone like Capstone, right? Where you're working directly for the publisher, where they say, this is the book. They might say, this is the format, how many pages, whatever. And then there's a packager, which is like a middleman, where Capstone, I don't know if they do this, but I'll use them as an example. Capstone will say, hey, packager, I'm in a hurry. I need 4 books on the economics of trees, and I need them by October, right? And I don't have time to mess with it. You find them. So then the packager goes out and says, hey, they look through their virtual Rolodex of writers for hire, and then they find someone who they think can fulfill that need. One of my books this was for Learner, a packager had contacted me because I submitted a writing sample and a writing resume to them. And they contacted me and said, could you write a series on finance for a chapter book series on finance? And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. Did you know I had a master's degree? Did you know I have an MDA? And do you know one of my majors was economics? I hit send and then I'm like, of course they know that. That's why they asked me. Like, they have my resume. Like, this wasn't random. Like, duh. And I was like, so embarrassed. And then do I immediately write back and say, sorry, of course you did. And I'm just going to leave it. I'm just so embarrassed right now. But that's how I got that, right? So then it just was I think it was confidence building that made me then reach out to more packagers, more places that do write for hire. So, that SCBWI, the book, that amazing resource in there. I haven't looked at it for a while, but they have it'll say accepts work for hire. And there might even be, like I said, I haven't checked it for a while, there might even be a section that says packagers. So if it says work for hire, then submit your resume saying, I'm interested in doing work for hire. I'm committed to deadlines. I have fast turnaround. I'm open to communication. Tell them that you have the skill set that they need and give them some writing samples and tell them what your areas of interest are, not just what your background is. For a while, I was putting travel so that I can have an excuse to go to exotic places. It kind of worked, but I couldn't convince my husband to go to the Philippines.
He doesn't need to go.
Yeah. So you do want to include all that stuff in your resume, whether it's work for hire or submitting it to packagers. Put your writing experience. And if you don't have a lot of writing experience per se, as in you're pre-published, you can mention either how long you've been writing. I mean, what would you guys say? What would you advise someone? Newsletters, or you've been an active part of your school curriculum?
Will work for Dumbo Peanuts.
No, that's mine. I just trademarked it.
I mean, I think it's similar to what you put in a bio, right? To show you're working on your craft, you do workshops and you have a critique group and you're part of SVWI, all that stuff.
Yes,
I think
exactly.
Yes, a list of professional groups that you're a part of. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It shows that you're dedicated and committed. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You're still doing the work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What?
And
yeah.
I wouldn't include clips or anything like that. Just a writing sample. Writing sample of the kind of writing you want to do. Right? If you want to do middle grade, submit a middle grade writing sample. Don't submit a technical paper that you did on squirrels.
Right.
I don't know the degree to which I've ever talked about this on the podcast, but I had a very short period. No, this is not the day job for a change. But I had a very short period when I was a new dad, where I'm moonlit as a content writer. In the early days of SEO, I would write these short blog pieces. Maybe I have. I don't know what that expression is that you've got on your face. Maybe I haven't talked about this.
You have not.
I would write these short, like 300 to 500 word blog pieces that would require intense, very short turnaround research. The thing that comes to mind is I once wrote for a Miami-based window film covering company. I wrote for their blog, and it would just show up as, window film company. But I would have to research how to SEO these blog posts. Anyway, all that comes to mind because I credit a lot of that for making me very much less dedicated to the things that I write. And what I want to compare and contrast with you, Bitsy, is this notion of how personal our writing is, but then also how you have to take the personal out in order to write, and this is where it connects to the day job, in order to write to someone else's specifications. How did you come to that, or have you not really ever had a challenge with writing to spec?
If you can honestly think of it, and I know it's very hard because it sounds cold, but if you were to think of it as putting a product on the market, and again, I'm sorry to say this, but as writers, we're business owners, okay? Our books are a product, and I'm sorry to offend every one of us as a writer or an illustrator, but we don't write books to not sell them. If we wanted to write for ourselves, we wouldn't try to get it published, okay?
That's right.
So our book is a product. And you don't have to call it a product, but it is. So if there's any way, when you're looking at a critique, you can step back and say, how do I ensure my product, you can call it whatever you want, how do I ensure my widget is the best that it can be in order to stand out on the shelf in the marketplace? How do I make sure that my widget, my product, is the best that it can be so that it can be a top seller, so that it can catch the eye of a buyer? How do I make sure that it's the best it can be? I mean, I said that twice, but how do I make sure that it's the best? And you know your product the best, right? It's your product. So you don't have to listen to everything people say. But you also kind of know when they're right. So as far as killing your darlings, it might hurt, but usually you kind of know if what they're saying makes sense. So if you need to set it aside, catch your breath, take another look, just remember that you're doing it for the end product. You're doing it to make it the best that it can be. And that makes you a better person. That makes you a better writer. It doesn't mean that your work stunk. It means that now you're a better writer.
Yeah.
I'm working on a manuscript right now that is 18 months old, maybe. Something like
Average.
that. Brennan's offered comments on it recently, and it's just about it. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like just now, it's just about ready to go, and I resonate a lot with the being ready to receive the feedback, being ready to be sort of dispassionate about it, because I wait a long time to write things, and then I'm very precious about them when they've come out of me, because it takes a lot to get a story onto paper. And I let the critiques from our critique group, shout out to our totally funny critique group, I let those sit and simmer for a good year before I went back and sort of like gelled it into place. And there's a lot of truth in waiting for the right time and not being impatient, because you're writing, if you're impatient, you rush it through, it's going to look like something that came from Temu or whatever.
Right. That came from a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I just came across a manuscript. I was cleaning through one of my many piles of paperwork. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot I was even writing this one. And I'm like, what? Why is it here? And I remember it was because I was so mad at all the feedback that I got. I was just like livid, and I just sat it down. I'm like, forget it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not writing that book. I was just, forget it. And I didn't throw it away though, right? I kept it because I knew at some point I was going to put on my big girl pants, remove the Band-Aid, and take a look because I was mad because what they were saying was kind of right. What they were saying, not everything, but, a lot of what the points they were making were right. The ending didn't fit the beginning, and a lot of the middle wasn't great. So I didn't completely dismiss it. I didn't put it through the shredder. But yeah, Josh, like you're saying, set it aside. I'm still not ready to look at it yet, but I do have it. I never threw it away because I do want to go back to it. I do want to give it another chance. And kind of loosen up the shoulders, get ready to take another look at it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the feedback that tends to make us the most upset is maybe the most true, which is why it's so hard to take in, Yeah, like sometimes it just is like, oh shoot, like that one just hits especially hard, Mm-hmm. So it's worth it to set it aside. I gave a critique recently to somebody who won, a critique giveaway that I had done. And they wrote back and they said, thank you so much for the feedback. I'm going to let it sit for a little while. And I just was like that. I'm like, that is great. That's a great next step. Like, I'm terrible at doing that. I'm terrible at letting things just sit because I want the piece, like I have this vision for the piece and I want to get there, like I want to get there. And I'm like, I know what it should look like. I need to like get it. And so I'm really bad at letting things sit.
In terms of not letting things sit.
Yeah, right. No, like I like to revise immediately. Yeah, right. I like to like revise and like move forward and just be like, okay, this is it. This is the one, right? And it like rarely ever is.
You're excited to keep writing. You're excited to keep going on. You keep the momentum moving.
Yes.
Brenda's latest manuscript, I read version 1 last Friday, and then 2 days ago I read version 10.
That's not a lie. That is not a lie.
It's not.
So yeah, I don't like to let things sit because I get so excited, but there are some that I'm like, oh man, like this feedback, I don't even know where to start. Like I need to just like, whatever, and work on something else. So yeah.
So I want to bring it back to a different aspect. So I think I read on your website that you at least profess to write primarily for the school market. Is that a niche that you intentionally carved for yourself?
Oh, so the books that are in print are for the school and library. The books that are in print are for the school and library market because that just happens to be where the write for hire that I've done tends to be, because that is, the writing for hire market, I think, is much more nonfiction than it is fiction, because my guess is that a publisher will see the success of somebody's series and they want to do something similar and capitalize on the success that they have. And it's usually in the nonfiction world. That's a total guess. Or they just come up with a great idea. Like, what if we filled this gaping hole in the market and did a series on X? And they, they'll point to someone else and say, find me someone to do that in 6 weeks. Yeah. So, Josh, you talked about...
Yeah.
I was going to say one of my books was The Constitutional Right to Privacy. I did win an award for that, thankfully, because that was like writing a thesis on a class I never took. It was written for teens, and I knew nothing about that. But it was an assignment, and, you talked about doing the research, Josh, for those CEO. You had to do some quick research on whatever company you were writing for. And let me tell you, you do not want to mess up a book that involves the Constitution, that involves law and amendments.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what a critical
lawyer to do it.
Yeah. Not somebody with a degree in economics, but I mean, what a critical book, what a critical subject matter for especially teens to.
Yeah. So I made it really fun. Like, you can't look in my bag, can you? Or that's just garbage. You know, I just tried to make the chapters silly and fun and yeah.
Yeah. But to pull this apart, you don't. It's more that the books that are in print are for the school market, and you don't yourself consider yourself a writer primarily for the school market, is what it sounds like.
No, what's funny is that I feel that I'm a creative picture book writer, fiction, and yet my first two on my own, I don't have two fiction books coming out until 2025 and 2026. Those are my first two real fiction books. And I've been in the industry for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And these are my first two real, all on my own, picture books, fiction.
Yeah, never mind all the rest of that stuff. This is who I am.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and this is Best Friends for Grandma and Best Friends for Grandpa. They're two different ones. And that was when I did something where, I don't know, I made myself laugh. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's something my grandmother would have done or would have said or whatever. And I thought, God, I wonder if she has any idea the impact that she's made on me, right? And then I started thinking, I wonder and I was thinking my sister has a grandchild. I'm like, I wonder if she'll ever have an idea how much of an impact she's making on her grandchild. And I thought, I think we need to let grandparents know how important they are. So that's how I got that.
So are those companion books then, Bitsy? Because the titles are very similar.
Yeah. So Best Friends with Grandma comes out in 2025, and then in time for Grandparents' Day, hopefully, and then Best Friends with Grandpa will come out again, hopefully, in time for Grandparents' Day in 2026. And those are with Blessless Press. A little press.
Oh, okay. And what was that publishing journey like? Because I'm guessing it was different since it's your first fiction and it's also and companion books too. So did you sell them both at the same time? Yeah, a 2-book deal.
Okay. Well, it was the research. I found out that they were having an open call from doing my updates on the publishers list, bitsykemper.com/publishers. Doing that update, and I'm like, They have an opening. Yeah, they have an opening. I'm gonna see what I can do with this one. Again, this is gonna. It sounds terrible, but again, it was another one that I didn't show my critique partners.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know. I wrote it kind of quickly, and I wanted to take advantage of their open window, and I thought it's it's good enough. Sometimes I'm sure you guys have heard the phrase. Finished is better than perfect. And I figured I'll never, right? And I figured if I bring this to my critique partners, then I'll do this, then I'll do that, then I'll get mad, then I'll get frustrated, then I'll change the whole thing, and I'll bring it back to them, and right? And I figured it would take forever. So I'm like, I'm just going to submit this, see what they say. And they accepted it. So that was my Best Friends with Grandma. And then about, was it a year later, 6 months, maybe 8 months later, Michelle McAvoy, she's the publisher of the Little Press. She's wonderful. She was at a booksellers conference and kept getting questions about grandpa books. So she came back and said, hey, how'd you like to write a companion book, Best Friends with Grandpa? Well, I would love to. Let me give it a shot.
That's amazing.
So it was by her request. The book isn't even out yet, and she asked me to write the companion. So she's excited because she thinks...
That's interesting. So, yeah, it was almost like a work-for-hire situation. It was a weird hybrid because it was your idea, your manuscript, and then you were hired again because that idea was so good, you got to do another one.
Right.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And this was not an idea that you already wrote and had ready to go. Like you saw their open window and sort of wrote to spec, and you were like, I think this is an idea that like is specific for them. So it was sort of an exclusive submission had the idea. Also.
Yeah, I had the idea in my head, and I thought if I were to submit it to anyone, it would be I rearranged it. Like I had it one way, and then I thought, if I rearrange it this way, I bet these guys will like it. And they did. They liked the rearranged version.
That's amazing. That's yeah. Congratulations. I mean, we'll have to keep our eyes out for both of those, the grandma one and then the companion grandpa. That's awesome.
And I think Publishers Weekly or Publishers Lunch. I'm sorry, I always confuse the two. Shame on me, but there should be an announcement in both or at least one of them this week.
Oh, awesome!
They
this week at time of recording, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
The week of right. Let me reword that. There should have been an announcement in Publishers Lunch or Publishers Weekly. I always confuse the two, so I'm not sure which is which, but there should have been an announcement made in there.
There was a very well received announcement several months ago of your two books.
Yeah, right. So much excitement.
Are you knowing that this is going to come out in a bit? Are you comfortable with shouting out the illustrator?
Amelia Gossman.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Yeah.
Yes, Amelia Gossman. She seems to be wonderful. I haven't spoken with her yet.
Awesome.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I mean, that seems like a great place to end because we can shout out your books. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on, Bitsy, because I know there's been a few technical difficulties, but thank you for sort of rolling with them and being so gracious with your time. It's been awesome talking with you.
I've had a great time. You guys are so fun to talk with and be with.